Come on, Mom. She ruins the mood. It's a road trip, not a shelter project. I don't want her tagging along. The words didn't slam. They skimmed, like pebbles on bare skin. Casual. Practiced. The exact tone my sister uses when she wants cruelty to sound like logic. The speaker crackled with laughter, brittle and rustling like crumpled foil. Someone hummed in agreement. Another said my name like I was an equation to balance. Sometimes pain doesn't roar. It's the way the room carries on as if you were never there. It's the empty calendar squares that were supposed to be yours. It's watching the family chat rename itself Road Trip 25 while your little icon sits in the corner, abandoned like luggage left by the door. My name's Arden Hale, 27. The quiet one. The guy who remembers birthdays, who drives people to the airport at 4 a.m., who takes the photos and gets cropped out later. I learned long ago that silence can bruise, but also cut. And I learned paper never mocks you. Don't take it personally. Mom said sugar lacing steel. Your sister just wants a drama-free vacation. Drama-free. That's what they call it when your very existence is the plot twist no one wants. I looked at the suitcase on my bed. Shirts rolled tight, sunscreen unopened. The ceiling fan ticked like a metronome marking humiliation. Outside, Karachi's heat leaned against the glass relentless. Even the neighbor's mango tree held still. Be a team player, Dad texted later. Sit this one out. I typed sure, deleted it. Typed okay, deleted that too. Then slid the sunscreen back into the drawer. It stuck, then gave, like everything in my life that required just a little more force to close. Here's where most people cry. I didn't. I poured water. Listened to the glug. Set my phone face down, screen blank and black. The old ache rose, the ache of being the extra chair at every table. Then I went to the hall closet. On the top shelf, behind a forgotten blanket, sat a navy folder with brass corners rubbed dull. Inside a deed. My name on it. Stamped. Notarized. The address spelled in patient serif letters. My sister calls it her house. My parents call it the family place. The county calls it something else. I call it mine. If my presence ruined her trip, then my absence would alter her destination. I laid the deed on the table, cool and heavy. Dialed a number I'd save for later. The realtor answered smooth, voice polished by repetition. So it's just you on the title. No corners. No co-signers. Yes. My thumb pressed the page flat. My name. My signature. My payments. A chuckle. Good for you. At your age? Let's talk listing strategy. Listing strategy. The phrase rang sharper than apology, cleaner than family promises. My sister didn't want me around. Fine. Let her come home to locks that didn't turn. That night I walked barefoot through the house. Tiles clicked under my steps, echoing against furniture that wasn't mine, memories that weren't mine. Her laughter still clung to the corners like mildew. The fridge held half-empty wine bottles, imported cheese, things I never bought because I budgeted while she indulged. I wasn't furious. I was cold. Cold enough to notice the dust on the fan, the unpaid bills shoved behind a vase, the sticky ring on the counter where something had dried. That's the gift of betrayal. It sharpens your vision. I folded one of her designer sweaters and dropped it neatly into a donation bag. One bag became 2, then 3. By midnight, the house was less hers and more mine. When dawn bruised the horizon orange and gray, I texted the realtor, "List it today." Her reply was instant, "Consider it done." The satisfaction wasn't fiery. It was surgical. A clean incision. That evening, a family group message lit my screen. Made it to the first stop. "Wish you were here, Red Heart." I stared at the red heart, a cartoon organ from people who just carved out mine. I said nothing. Instead, I pictured their return, suitcases dumped in the hall, smiles fading, keys refusing to turn. And in that imagined silence, I smiled. But silence doesn't last. 2 weeks later, a knock rattled my door. My parents stood outside, storm-eyed. Arden opened the door wider. Dad ordered, voice honed by decades of obedience. Mom hovered behind, lips pressed so thin they looked cut into her face. No smiles. No souvenirs. Just fury dressed as entitlement. I leaned on the frame, would cool against my arm. "What's this about?" My tone was too calm. Calm enough to make Mom blink. You know exactly what it's about. Her perfume seeped in thick and sweet like smoke. How could you do this to your sister? She called us in tears. Said the locks were changed. Said the realtor sign was up. She called you crying. I raised a brow. Let the pause stretch. Funny. She never called me. Not once. Dad jaw-locked. That house was for her. Everyone knows it. That word again, everyone. Everyone but me. Everyone except the one who scraped double shift, signed the loan, and paid the down payment while my sister signed bar receipts. No, Dad, I said, my voice calm, clipped, unshakable. The house is mine. The county knows it. The bank knows it. The only people pretending otherwise are standing here right now. Mom's eyes narrowed. You've humiliated us. Do you know how it looks? Our daughter tossed out while her sister betrays her. Betray? The word hooked deep, but not the way she meant. Betrayal wasn't mine. Betrayal was leaving me out of road trips, out of photos, out of family. Betrayal was calling me drama while she lived inside walls I paid for. I let silence swell until even Dad shifted his weight. The wind outside rattled the leaves like a restless crowd. I didn't betray her, I said finally, quiet but sharp. I just stopped sponsoring her. Dad's face flushed. He stepped closer, lowering his voice as if menace required volume control. Arden, undo this. Call the realtor. Fix it. Or else. Or else. The laugh rose but came out as a sigh. Or else what? You'll cut me out? You already did. The fridge hummed behind me. Mom's perfume hung heavy in the doorway. Dad's jaw ticked. For a beat, no one spoke. Then Mom hissed it like poison. We're ashamed of you. I didn't flinch. I looked past them, into the falling dusk. Ashamed of me? That was the best they had. Beneath their words, I finally saw it, the real reason they came. Not shame. Not disappointment. Fear. Fear that the quiet one they erased had found a lever strong enough to move them. And I wasn't done pulling. They stood there as if presence alone could bend deeds and signatures to their will. But when that failed, Dad stepped back, his voice dropping low, sharpened by pride. You think you've won, Arden? You don't understand. That house is more than walls. It's family property. Generations. You don't just sell history for spite. History. The word burned my throat. History was the excuse they used each time they erased me from it. Christmas tables, road trips, graduations, where my chair was always the spare. History had never been mine to share, only to endure. Funny, I said, arms crossed. When it came time to pay for that history, no one showed up. Suddenly, it was only mine. Convenient, isn't it? Mom's eyes flicked sharp, desperate. Your sister doesn't deserve this humiliation. She's telling everyone what you did. Do you really want to be known as bitter? Jealous. There it was, the script. When they couldn't control me, they rewrote me. Bitter. Jealous. Ungrateful. Cages disguised as labels. But I wasn't stepping in. Silence thickened, heavy as smoke. Sunlight slanted red through the blinds, cutting their faces into older, harsher versions of themselves. Finally, Dad muttered, We'll fix this. Don't think it's over. He tugged Mom away, their anger trailing like exhaust. I shut the door. The click echoed like a gavel. Alone, I leaned back against it, breath tight but steady. Not fear, clarity. They weren't fighting for my sister. They were fighting for control. The house had been their leash, wrapped in the language of generosity. With it gone, they had nothing to pull. I slid to the floor, knees to chest, letting the quiet sink in. My phone buzzed in my pocket. The family chat, no doubt. I didn't look. Instead, I opened my notes app and typed one line. Freedom doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it comes with slammed doors. The words steadied me, but I knew this wasn't finished. Parents who lose control don't retreat. They regroup, and I could already feel the next wave gathering. 2 days later, it broke. I was on the porch, coffee in hand, realtor sign already staked in the yard, when a familiar car pulled up. My sister. Sunglasses on, shoulders squared like armor. She didn't knock, she stormed in. You've lost your mind, Arden. Selling the house doesn't make you powerful. It just proves you're pathetic. Pathetic. The word clattered weakly from her tongue, more for herself than me. I set my cup down, deliberate. You want to know what's pathetic? Living in a house you never paid for and convincing yourself it was yours. Her cheeks flushed, mask slipping. Mom and Dad will never forgive you. Everyone says you've gone too far. I stepped closer, heat sparking in the space between us. Everyone already left me out. Remember, this isn't me going too far. This is me finally catching up. Her grip tightened on her designer bag. You'll regret this. The words should have stung like a threat. Instead, they sounded like a promise I was daring the universe to deliver. I tilted my head. The only regret I have is letting it drag on this long. You treated my kindness like it was endless. It isn't. Consider this my final donation. She faltered then, lips parting, eyes glistening with something she'd never admit was fear. A second later she spun, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I exhaled, a knot of triumph and grief twisting in my chest. Triumph, because the house was no longer her fortress. Grief, because it had come to this blood against blood, family-turned battlefield. Her car screeched away. I lifted my coffee. Oh, bitter. I sipped anyway. Sometimes bitter is the taste of truth. And truth was this: they weren't finished with me. But I wasn't finished with them either. The counterstrike came fast. By morning, my inbox was flooded. Relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Cousins, uncles, even an aunt from Florida, all singing the same rehearsed chorus. How could you do this? Family is everything. You're tearing us apart. Tearing us apart? I almost laughed. We've been cracked for years. I was just the first one to stop pretending. By noon, Dad called. His voice carried the weight of authority he thought still worked on me. Arden, you've embarrassed us. Take the house off the market. Do it quietly, and we'll forget this ever happened. I let the silence stretch until he wondered if the call had dropped. Then, calm and deliberate, I'm not interested in forgetting anymore. His voice snapped. You ungrateful girl. After everything we've done, I cut him off. Everything you've done? You mean leaving me out? Mocking me? Calling me the burden? You don't get to rewrite the story now. A sharp inhale. Then the dead click of disconnection. That night, I drove past the house. The realtor's sign gleamed under the streetlight, bold and undeniable. For the first time in years, the place looked like mine, not because of possession, but because I finally had the courage to let it go. Through the window, I saw movement. My sister packing, her empire collapsing box by box. A pang of pity stirred, then dissolved. Pity had been my prison. Tonight, I was free. She stepped onto the porch with a suitcase. Our eyes met across the street. She froze, narrowed her gaze, venom glinting in the dark. She didn't wave. Neither did I. I started the engine, the hum swallowing her glare, my doubts, and the stale weight of family shame. The house shrank in the rear view, and for once, I didn't look back. But I knew this wasn't over. The battlefield was only shifting. 2 nights later, I came home to find my parents waiting on my porch steps, shadows etched by the streetlight. Dad spoke first. You've turned your back on us. I unlocked the door without answering. They followed anyway, thick with entitlement. Mom set her purse on my table, scanning the room like a judge. You've made enemies in your own bloodline. Arden, is that what you wanted? I turned, pulse steady. I wanted honesty. For once. Dad's fist clenched. Selling that house, you've ruined your sister. People are talking. I met his glare. People have always talked. About how I wasn't enough. Wasn't wanted. Now they'll talk about something else. About how I stopped being your doormat. The words split there. Mom flinched. Silence thickened. The only sound, the ticking clock. Finally, Dad's voice dropped low. You'll regret this. Families don't forgive betrayal. I stepped closer, shadow cutting across theirs. Maybe not. But I can forgive myself. They hadn't expected that. Their faces stiffened. Then they left, slamming the door so hard the walls rattled. But I stayed steady. The storm wasn't inside me anymore. It was outside, where it belonged. The reckoning came 2 weeks later. Not with shouting, but paperwork. The final signatures dried like scars, and the money landed in my account, cleaned mine. The realtor handed me the envelope. Congratulations, she said, smiling like she understood. I drove past the house one last time. Empty now. Curtains gone. Windows hollow. Just a structure stripped of entitlement, waiting for its next life. My sister was gone too, reduced to suitcases on a friend's couch. That night, my parents returned again. Not raging, pleading, smaller than I'd ever seen them. Arden, Mom's voice cracked. Your sister has nowhere to go. Can you help her? Just until she finds her footing. The old me, the one who folded her sweaters, drove her places, paid while she played, would have caved. But I wasn't that Arden anymore. I gave her years of footing. She chose to stand on my shoulders and call it her ground. Now she can learn what the floor feels like. Dad's jaw hardened. You've made yourself an enemy of your own family. I exhaled softly. No, I've just stopped being your servant. They stared at me as if I were a stranger. Maybe I was. I closed the door, slow and final. Click. The sound rang like a chord of closure. Later, I sat on the balcony, city lights blinking against the night. I thought about betrayal, silence, and the moment a person chooses themselves over being chosen last. For the first time, I wasn't invisible. I wasn't erased. I was free. And into the cool air I whispered, so the house, my parents, and even my sister could hear. You wanted me out of the picture. Congratulations. I've drawn a new one without you.